Hello, investors. This is Todd Thomas, Associate Portfolio Manager with Revere Asset Management. Today is Sunday, July 20th, 2025, and the time is 3:47 p.m. Coming to you with the Revere Roundup Weekend Walkthrough. Last week, we made record highs on both the NASDAQ and the S&P. Overall on the week, the Big 8, which is the Mag 7, including Netflix, was up 1.19%. The RG8 composite was up 2.70%. S&P was up 0.59%. Equal weight was flat. The Qs were up 1.27%. The Q equal weight was up 0.71%. The Dow and the mid-cap 400 were flat. Russell 2000 was up 0.23%. A 60-40 portfolio mix was up 0.31%. And standing out without performance was GROTECTION up 1.59%. And Turbo with a whopping 4.41% with a huge week in crypto as well as nuclear plays. The state of the market, 4 green up arrows. We took away the cautionary sign on the short-term 21 EMA this past week because the extension has lessened. However, we're still going to keep the 50-day extension on caution watch. Overall, all indexes are above the 200-day moving average, and it's trending up nicely. Now let's go to what happened last week. We talked about the indexes making fresh new highs after a digestion week the prior week. NVIDIA, Taiwan, and AMD led a strong week for AI chip stocks after Trump cleared them to resume selling AI processors to China, albeit the watered-down processors. Apple committed $500 million to MP Materials for magnet production and recycling of rare earth magnet materials, and will purchase American-made rare earth magnets from MP. Treasury yields edged higher for the third straight week, while the dollar continued to rebound. Cryptocurrencies had a big week, and their proxies jumped as the pro-crypto legislation worked its way through Congress. Also, CEOs from JP Morgan, Citigroup, and Bank of America noted their interest in getting involved with cryptocurrency stablecoins. There were several economic numbers on the week, but the CPI, both core and regular CPI, rose less than expected. On the week, the biggest gainers were Rocket Lab up 31%, OUST and LiDAR. Circle Internet was up 19.5%. Roblox continuing its run for the week up 17.8%. E1 Medicine added to the watchlist up 17%. And Shopify broke out this week up 13.3%. And Robinhood, another internet or crypto proxy, was up 11.6%. And the worst on the week on the downside was Netflix, only down 2.9%. So if that's the worst of your leaders, that's not a bad week. Earnings season is upon us, and this week starts the floodgates of earnings season. You can see several names like Domino's, SAP, Intuitive Surgical, Raytheon in the defense area, EQT in the natural gas, Amphenol, GE Verona, Alphabet, Tesla on Thursday, ServiceNow, Mr. Cooper in the mortgage servicing, Flextronics, and several names in the financial and defense areas. Heat map standouts, NVIDIA up 4.5%, Palantir up another 8% on the week, Oracle 6.46%, Tesla 5.15%, PepsiCo up 5.90%, and GE on earnings up 3%, GEV up 6.57%, just grinding higher week after week. On the downside, ExxonMobil down 6%, Abbott Labs down 6.3% on earnings, United Health down another 7%. Banks muted overall, with Citigroup up 7.7%, BK up 5%, and the rest flat or up or down slightly. On the ETF front, gold miners were down 2.4%. China, 4.33% up on the week. XLE Energy down 3.5%. XLK up slightly, XLF up slightly. Everything else was pretty muted. Going to the inter-asset correlation. S&P 500 up 0.59, a new all-time closing high on the index after a muted flat week the week before. RSP down slightly, still not able to break out through the upper end of this base. 188.16 is the pivot, and this continues to have a tough time getting near that here, as really the market has continued to be dominant by the same larger cap names. Qs up 1.27% to a new closing week high. Equal weights were up 0.7%. And again, backed off from the higher end from last week. The Dow was slightly down, but overall very flat on the week. Still not able to get through those old highs from earlier in the year, or at least maintain above those highs. The mid-cap 400 was down just basically flat on the week. However, was able to take a trip down to the 200-day moving average on Wednesday and show a nice hammer candle off that low and follow through here. So, yeah, these have been struggling to get near all-time highs and just overcame the 200-day moving averages a few weeks ago here. Overall, still maintaining, and it looks like a 3-week tight overall on the mid-caps. Russell, same situation. Didn't quite get down to the 200-day like the mid-caps did, but got down to that 21 EMA, bounced, and had a down day on Friday. But overall, kind of a 3-week tight on this index as well. VIX slightly back up on the week, 16.41, but still in a decent area. The dollar index with another up week, 0.6%. As it continues to rebound off those recent lows, still below the 200-day moving average. Gold flat and getting real tight here. Looking for this to make a move one way or the other. Gold miners down 2.76%. Same situation, looking for these to make a move one way or the other. Silver looking pretty good still, but down 1.2% on the week after a new recent multi-year high last week. IBIT taking a breather after making new all-time highs interweek. Overall, reversed and down 0.79% on the week. The bond market through the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index. This was flat on the week. TLT, which is the 20-year bond prices, down 0.64% as yields climbed. 30-year Treasury over 5% now on the week, up 0.44 or 44 basis points. The 10-year up 9 basis points on the week, 4.4%. Mag 7, this round hill ETF was up 1.69. Now getting into the Mag 7, Apple's still not able to do too much. Still trading below a downward declining 200-day moving average, but above its shorter term moving averages. And still above several of its long-term weekly averages. So relative strength 27, pretty weak over the last year. Amazon, tight 4 weeks straight now. Microsoft, another new weekly all-time high, up 1.34%, just grinding. Basically trading with the S&P 500. Meta down 1.84%, backing off a little bit. NVIDIA now multi-week highs again, or all-time highs, but multiple up weeks and up 4.54%. Relative strength continuing to rocket higher on this to new highs on the relative strength here for this year. And Google up 2.7%, was able to reclaim its 200-day moving average. Again, these are not leading right now, except for NVIDIA and Microsoft look good, but a lot of these names are just lagging. Netflix, which has been very good, backed off 2.8% on earnings, below the 10-week moving average. And Tesla, coming into earnings, had a pretty good overall week, up 5%. And power of 4 through all the indexes, or not the indexes, the moving averages. And as it had been below it, vacillating right along that 50-day and the 200-day moving average, and finally overcoming the 50-day on Friday. So earnings will be pivotal for this stock next week. Now let's get into the watch list for the week. I sort these by flag names. Flag names are names that I continue to look, I'm in, or I continue to look for an entry, and then composite. So the highest composite name for the flag names. CCJ extended, huge week again after a pullback to the 21-day moving average 2 weeks ago. That was the best you could get, and up 8.6% on the week. Taiwan Semi up 4.34% on earnings to a new all-time high. Credo backed off this week 5%. Started getting weak on Thursday after it reversed off all-time highs. And then the selling continued on Friday. As you can see, intraday really open, went straight down, dropped below the 21 EMA, but then did get back above the 21 EMA, which you would expect a strong stock to do. However, volume was pretty heavy. Could be option related. Friday was option expiration. This did break kind of this brisk uptrend line it was in, so potential change of character here or opportunity to get in. So this can hold the 21 EMA. This might be a nice opportunity. Toast finally broke out this week after several reversals off the high of this base, and then this nasty reversal back to the 21, and now Thursday had finally a close where it was above all these levels here, this 45.86, and then held on Friday. So again, still off these 2021 highs, but potentially now, again, Thursday, you saw this frustrating reversal, or that was Friday. This is Thursday back here. Reversal, then ended up closing above the mid-range level and kind of held. So this has been a frustrating stock, but one to potentially watch now as it finally is broken through. AMD with a beautiful week, up 7.22%. This is a name we're closely watching, and it's been holding its 80 EMA after a few trips to the 21 EMA. So this one looks pretty powerful here. Through to another name that had a nice week, up 7%. This is a Chinese brokerage stock, and had a huge day on Friday. Broke through not all-time highs, but coming up again on these 21 highs. Rambus is a storage name in the data center, and again coming up again on these highs. So this looks pretty attractive. Earnings in 8 days, however, but up 6.48% on the week. LPLA, this is a stock that was on last week's new mutual fund buy list. This has been setting up in this flat base for a while here after it wasn't able to break out of these 384.04 highs and hold. So this is a new all-time closing high on LPLA. Not sure if this is going to be a barn burner, but this does look pretty good. SC also looks pretty good with a nice 13% week. DoorDash, 4-week tight. It's been a powerful stock. It's made a couple trips to the 21 EMA, and it bounced off the 21 EMA here, so stock to watch. KLAC with a 3-week tight, looking good in the semiconductor equipment makers. GEV just grinding, another 6.57% up week. Not necessarily viable here, but just continuing to throw strong action at us. Quanta Services looking good, up 5% on the week. AVAV up 3.8% here. Nice recovery here after the administration led by Hegseth announced the intent to increase U.S. drone orders. Veritiv is a name that held the 50-day moving average the week before last and made a higher high on Thursday. So this was a name, recall, that had a $5.5 billion in new mutual fund purchases, and you can see what institutional sponsorship leads to, and that's higher highs. herein, just a big high tight flag here, up 10% on the week. You've got the David Ryan ants formations just riding the 80 MA. Had a little bit of a shakedown after a failed breakout on Friday, but really just an inside day and a strong, close on the week. Carvana 3-week tight, looking good. ANET, new name on the list. Large institutional buying also on the mutual fund list, up 3% on the week. NTES, a Chinese online gaming company, up 6% on the week, approaching actually overcoming in new all-time high territory here. So this is a new all-time closing weekly high on this name. Seagate with a 3-week tight has really just been phenomenal riding this ADMA. This 3-week tight break could provide an entry. ARM with earnings in a week and a half, looking good here. Net, this is a standout in the security area here with a new 52-week high, still shy of these 2021 highs, but up 8.8%. And this looks like the new leader in the security software area, breaking into a higher high and new 52-week highs. Shopify was another name last week on the mutual fund purchases list with around a $2 billion of new mutual funds. And again, was able to break through this area, this tight area up here, which it's been trading in, kind of a Darvas box, if you will. So had that one on my list. Really don't have any room to buy anything new, but with that institutional buying, I liked how tight this was getting, and sure enough, it had a really nice break through that area, up 13%. Light, a new closing recent high going back to 2021. This LiDAR area has been pretty hot, and this is now above the 100 area. Kratos Defense up 14%, another drone maker with a huge week. Coinbase, we all took some offensive sells into this, trimmed, offensive trims, new all-time weekly closing highs, and broke this old high going back to 2021. So looks good. Looks just like a massive IPO base breakout. The firm looks good, up 6%. ONC, this is a new name that broke out of a pretty tight area here. This is a biotech and had a big breakout with 4 huge days of well above average volume. Not sure if there was news on this, but this is a new high going back to the 2021 levels. Hammer Sports tried breaking out. Again, another name that's struggling to break out. Could this be tight for too long, or is this going to go? We'll see, but it held the 21 EMA on the week. And finally, A-Lab with a closing week above 100. This is another name like Toast that's been a little bit frustrating. Every time it's tried going through 100, it's reversed. But, and again, the reversals have been pretty vicious and percentage-wise. Very difficult for a trader that manages his risk, but was able to break and close above 100. Look for progress above 100, and this could be an interesting name. Flutter, gaming stocks are starting to look better. This is a new all-time high for Flutter. Oracle up another 6.4% on the week. NRG, this is a name that Toddzilla took a shot at here as it tried crossing above its 50-day moving average. Talon, another utility, broke out hard on an acquisition. NRG made an acquisition back here, which doubled its natural gas power production. So these names could be back in play. So if this doesn't work, I'm looking at about a 2% loss in this name. Maybe 3 if I give it a little more time, but closed basically right at its 50-day moving average. So we'll see how this does. TKO, this is a Can Slim name. As you can see, the earnings and sales are very nice coming ahead. This is pulled back interweek to the 10-week moving average. Could be a pullback entry setup here, pullback buy as it overcame Wednesday and Thursday's highs. So, or just simply wait for a confirmed break through the downtrend line here coming up. And I've got an alert set around that 172.94 area. Oklo, huge week, 23%. EQ cheap, perking up. Again, this was not able to break out, but almost a 7% week, something to keep an eye on. Symbotic, another name we've been talking about, up 15%. Roku, not too many people talking about this name. We're really doing a beautiful job riding the ADMA. And again, another weekly closing higher high. So this has traditionally been a volatile stock, but if you look at Roblox, it's kind of snuck out the same way, just rode that ADMA all the way up with some recent pullbacks, but just riding that ADMA. So not sure this is going to do a Roblox, but it's a name I'm watching. Hinge Health is a new IPO I've been talking about. Basically, not a 3-week tight, but almost 2 point, because it's over 1.5%. But this is pretty tight action here now for 4 weeks. Oops, what happened here? Advanced to Reddit, but still wanted to talk about this. This is really 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-week tight, really. So I think this one looks pretty good. Reddit bounced off of the 10 and 20-week moving averages here after shaking out below. Again, this is another name, pullback buy potential with a stop just below the 50-day. So you're talking about, I'm sorry, stop below the 21-day. So you're only talking about 4 or 5% loss here if this doesn't work. Circle with a decent week, but reversal on Friday. Not a bearish engulfing, but just reversed. So this is kind of a volatile name, but looks pretty decent. MP up 40% on the week after the Apple $500 million investment and commitment to buy rare earth magnets from them. Again, Apple's committed to put $500 billion into the U.S. As part of Trump negotiations, and they're committing to MP along with the U.S. government, along with Goldman Sachs, giving them 500 in financing, 500 million, and the government guaranteeing 5 years of purchases at double the market rate for rare earth magnets. Energy Fuels is another rare earth name, which had a huge week, up 41%. This is a lower price stock. They are profitable. And they're also a uranium exploration company, but just had a huge week. Look at the volume in this right across the board. Rubric. This is a name that's trying to get above the 50-day moving average. I tried this stock and stopped out for basically break even, but I do like it, but it's just kind of sitting here along the 50-day moving average. So watching this closely for a potential pocket pivot or some buy signal. CLS flat on the week. Palantir up 8%, new all-time highs. SoFi up 2.8%. Road, this doesn't meet our liquidity standards. Hood with a huge 11.59% gain. This has been pretty much GROTECTIONs, Tottzilla, TurboTections. All of us are involved in this around this post-earnings area here, and we've had a couple offensive sells on this and did some offensive selling on Friday, continuing to hold a core position in it. Next tracker, pull back to the 10-week moving average. This is a standout. We're just kind of watching in the solar space. Close right around the 50-day. Go up 3%. Cruisers are doing well. LEU up 20%. Turbo's been in this one. This is a Chinese lodging company. Closed 2 weeks tight now, up 1.3%. Schwab was a mutual fund new buy from last week and also had earnings and broke out on Friday. Life 360, another CanSlim type name in the software space with a new 15% all-time high. Eaton up 5%. Ollie's trading tight. Twillo broke through this tight area here through the pivot zone. Not a super fast name, but looks really good in this kind of lower handle cup with handle. AppLovin trading here with higher lows and higher highs. Maybe you could say it's kind of wedgy here, but if we can get a move on some good volume, break this through, that could be interesting. This is another stock that's been showing consistent institutional buying in the IBD monthly new buy list. SMR, this is huge. Turbo's been in this, up 34%. Shark Ninja pushing all-time highs here. Ferrari with a nice base. Rocket Lab with just huge rocket this week of 31%. QS in the quantum area with a nice 58% gain. Kind of watching these names. DraftKings is another gaming name, which was up 1.7%, building a nice cup base. ASTS up 27%. Some of these battery stocks have been perking up here. ENVX was up 10% last week. This has had several of these spikes, but I don't know. Is this kind of a long-term downtrend breakout this week? Look at the volume. Last 2 weeks of pretty much record volume here. Galaxy Digital, it's a Bitcoin blockchain company, broke out of an IPO base this week. CRISPR Biotech up 14%. Just kind of watching this as it had a huge Friday. Talent Energy bought a new company and shot up 19%. So this was why I took a shot at NRG. RGTI, another quantum company, up 40% on the week. And that is it for the watch list. Thank you for watching this weekend's review. My name is Todd, and you can reach me at todd@revereasset.com. My Twitter handle is @ToddMichael70. If you'd like to give us a call, our number is 855-REAL-WEALTH. That's 855-732-5932. Our website is revereasset.com. We appreciate likes, shares, and follows on X. And thank you and have a great week.